Hi, I'm David Ireland, the Wildlife Man. Welcome to another Wildlife Man podcast. Now this episode is titled A Whale Broke My Back, and I promise you it is a fascinating story. Now I first started filming underwater back when I was around 20, that's 50 years ago. And I was using a black and white Nimrod camera. Over the last 50 odd years, I have spent thousands and thousands of hours filming marine creatures and a huge diversity of life. But one animal has always fascinated me, and that is the ocean giants, the whales. Now in Australia, here at Cronulla, we get humpback whales tracking up and down this coastline in the thousands. But sometimes we see the more rare southern right whales. And they were given that name because they were the right whale to hunt, because they had the most oil. And that's what the early whalers were after, was the oil. Now before whaling really kicked off in our southern waters, southern right whales numbered over maybe 100,000. Now they're probably around 12, 13, 14,000 in total. But thankfully their numbers are coming up around 7-10% a year, because there's no longer any southern right whale hunting, which is wonderful. Now back in 1990, I just got back from filming crocodiles in the Northern Territory. And we were staying at Cronulla where we lived. And I got a phone call from the Royal National Park, the National Park and Wildlife Service. Now back those days I had a permit to film whales, even on scuba. So they asked me would I like to come and film a whale off Cronulla. It was about 1 kilometre off the coast from Wanda Beach. And this whale was about to give birth. Its stomach was really extended, there was fluid coming out, and the National Parks guy said, Dave, we'll pick you up, we'll take you out, let's see if you can get some footage of a brand new southern right calf being born. So this was going to be a first in the world. No one had ever achieved that. So I grabbed my video camera, and on top of the video camera I had a Nikonus still black and white camera mounted on the top. I was going to get video as well as take still photos. So out we go. They picked me up at Wanda, they took me out to the whale, and she was now on the surface. Now southern rights are absolute giants. They can grow up to 20 metres long and weigh in excess of 70, even 75 tonne in weight. They're a massive, massive animal and very, very powerful. I jumped in and I swam down, and the whale came, she went down to the seabed. The seabed is about 50 feet down. And she started rubbing her tummy on the sand. And I'm behind her. She's going very slowly. And I could see fluid coming out. I thought, this is my chance. So I started moving in closer. 50 feet down on scuba, video camera and still camera. I move in closer and closer. And her tail went up. So I stupidly went under the tail to hopefully film the birth. And I thought I'd get it because she stopped. But of course whales need to breathe. So she brought the tail down to come up to breathe. And that massive tail, that huge amount of weight, just crushed me against the seabed, across the sand. And she actually broke my back. I didn't know that at the time. What I felt was my diaphragm push up into my lungs and be totally winded beyond belief. I felt like I had been run over by a truck. I didn't think I would survive that. I just lay there on the seabed trying to breathe. And she's back on the surface. All sorts of thoughts went through my head. How smashed up am I? Is my back broken, my ribs all broken? Am I going to die? Excuse me, am I going to see blood coming out of the regulator? What? I didn't know. And then all of a sudden, she comes down beside me. And I turned the camera like this, and the dome port was smashed. The video camera was totally flooded. So all I managed to do was press the shutter button on the still Nikonus camera and take a photograph. And that's the photograph that I took. At the time I thought it might be the last photograph I ever take in my life. What she did then was really strange. She actually pushed me and I rolled onto her nose. I was almost helpless. And she brought me back to the surface. I arrived at the surface on a nose. One of the National Parks and Wildlife guys pulled me off the nose of that whale into the boat. He's actually from the local tribe that owned this part of Australia. And the interesting thing is that tribe have the whale as their totem. So it was really amazing that happened. Last year I met that guy again for the first time after many years. Because this happened back in 1990. It turned out 2 of my vertebrae were split, but not this way. I could have easily been a paraplegic or whatever. I didn't get much pain, it healed up fairly quickly. But what it did was it partially severed the disc. And over the years, part of that disc actually wrapped around my sciatic nerve. And 2 years ago, it choked it almost completely. And I had horrendous sciatic pain going down my left leg. Felt like someone was stabbing me with a screwdriver. So much pain. Eventually I had an operation to try and remove that severed disc that was wrapped around the sciatica. And when they did the operation, it was meant to take 20 minutes. It took 4 hours because accidentally the surgeon severed a main artery and they had a lot of trouble keeping me alive. They had to pump blood into me constantly. Eventually they choked off that artery and I survived. But I was very, very weak. I went back to training at Crunch Gym and building up the strength in the support muscles that support the spine. And over about 6 months, I became 100% better. And now I'm strong again and no pain. Do I still like southern right whales? Absolutely I do. It was my fault what happened. I should never have gone under her tail. But the interesting thing is, why? Why did that southern right female, about to give birth, why did she come down to the seabed and push me back to the surface? Well, I can tell you why they do that when they're young. When a baby calf is born, they're born underwater. And the first thing a whale will do is push the baby to the surface for them to take the first breath. If they open up those blowholes, twin blowholes, underwater, they'll drown. So they're quick to push them to the surface. They know that little baby has got to breathe surface air. But how did this whale know that I needed to get to the surface? Why did she do that? And we don't understand fully. The interesting thing is, if you compare the brain size of a whale to the ratio of their weight, Only humans have a larger brain. They are incredibly social, intelligent, wonderful creatures. Years later, we were doing a film in Albany, in Western Australia, and we were doing a story about whaling. And two southern right whales started coming towards our dive boat. So we shut the motor off and just sat there. And they came up each side and started pushing the boat around, nudging it, even spy hopping, poking their heads out high enough out of the water to look at you in the eye. What's going on with these beautiful creatures? I could have died that day when the whale broke my back, but the same whale saved my life. What would the ocean be without the song of the whale? I am so passionate about their protection.